Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri, the host of Fit Insider, the show where I talk with the entrepreneurs, executives, and investors who are redefining the business of fitness and wellness. Today, I'm joined by Trent Ward. Trent is the CEO of FORME Life, a new connected fitness company combining a mirror-like display with the strength training elements of Tonal. In today's episode, we discuss FORME's design-forward product, their approach to content and talent, and how the idea of omnichannel fitness is transforming the industry. Let's get into it. Hi, Trent. Welcome to Fit Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
I'm excited to chat and hear more about what you're working on. So just to kick things off, can you tell us about FORME Life and kind of where you are with the product and when you guys are getting ready to launch?
Sure. No. So we've been working on this for over 4 years now, and really excited to launch. We'll open up the website for pre-orders this month. We'll be opening our stores this fall across the country, and we're going to be delivering, and installing product in people's homes in Q4.
And when you say product and what we can anticipate, kind of the high level overview, at home connected piece of fitness equipment, kind of combining the elements of group fitness and also strength training, but just how would you describe the experience and the product itself?
Sure. So, definitely connected hardware at home. I think we've seen in the market a number of other products that have come out, obviously starting with Peloton, and then, there've been a few others. Having integrated content and hardware in the home, we've seen is kind of drives the highest engagement. And that's what's driven our view of why we're developing this product. Strength training is a core element of it. And, we have a piece of equipment that both has integrated strength training, like you would see with a Tonal, but it's in a beautiful format that's a full-length mirror when you're not using it, kind of what you would see with like a mirror. And so what's interesting actually is we are developing or have developed two products, both a product that is incorporated the strength training, but then also one that is just the screen itself. And that really came from our philosophy of it's about the content and the analytics and the personalization, and having more than one type of hardware to address people's different needs and what's going on in their house is really important in order to help the most amount of people.
And when you think about that, just kind of digging in, there's obviously the element of the hardware itself. And so you're looking at across the landscape, Peloton starting with the bike, and then also now word that it's going to start to differentiate with a rower, and potentially some other products as well. You mentioned Mirror and Tonal. There's obviously Hydro and Fight Camp and a couple others in terms of modalities. And then the piece around content and analytics that you mentioned. So it's the idea of being able to differentiate on that side as well. When you think about kind of going into what is a quickly becoming crowded market, beyond the kind of product itself and offering both the mirror and the strength training, how will you differentiate and kind of stand out?
I think when you talk about quickly crowding, I think, a new headline every month or every couple of months where it's like this new product or this new product, the penetration rates for all of these is still really low. I mean, you could even argue that the penetration rate for Peloton is still low and there's still plenty of room for them to go. And obviously with COVID and whatnot's happening in the market, you're seeing an acceleration towards that. So I actually think there's plenty of room for a lot of different solutions. So, crowded for me is more about mind share with the consumer and them being able to understand the differences between them, as opposed to there's not a lot of space for everyone. And then, as we think about that, having a single modality cardio option is good for some people. The reality is strength training as a category is larger than all of cardio equipment combined from a participation rate in the US. So the things that I think Tonal and we are, how we're approaching the market is we're actually looking at the biggest part of the market. And that's before you start to add in some of the other modalities that come with a form, whether it's bar or yoga, meditation, boxing. So I think there is a bigger part of the market, but one of the main things to understand here is there's almost invariably two people in the home that we're talking about, right? That one of the main, the main problem or need state that consumers who are looking into at-home fitness are trying to solve is really lack of time, and that comes from household formation, getting married, having children, moving out to the suburbs, having a commute, all of those things. And so that household is going to have more than one person. There's going to be different preferences. You're looking for solutions that can address a bigger population, and it doesn't become a his or her type option. And so when we think about it, personal training and group fitness, to have both and to have these different modalities in one place that fits into the home most easily, it doesn't take up a lot of space, we think is probably a broader solution. But that's not to say that, and we see it with a lot of our customers where they have a Peloton and they have a Form. It's not kind of one or the other. So it really depends on personal situation, but we do think we're looking at the broadest part of the market.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And I would agree with, when I say crowded, I mean in terms of, the category itself and the products that are being offered, in terms of you have a piece of cardio, focused equipment, say, as well as subscription content. And then as that market starts to break out, to your point, differentiation is going to be key. But then on the flip side of that, you have the fact that the vast majority of folks don't exercise at all. So there's huge opportunity for penetration there. But then the counter to that is that the fitness industry in general doesn't serve necessarily the folks who aren't working out. They're selling to a very small subset of people who are already fit. Just kind of, how do you think about that in terms of where Form fits in, and how you get people to start exercising that might not be exercising now?
It's a great question, right? And it's something we think about a lot, and it's a general, there's another element in there of also wealth and wealth inequality for all of these things that we think about. So without a doubt, the main thrust of Form and kind of the problem we're trying to solve is, part of it came from my personal background of just, busy professional and trying to fit this stuff in and trying to optimize, the workout and making sure I'm doing the right thing. We're mainly removing friction for people that already have the desire to do it. And so that's a incremental solution to some people. And I think that's kind of where we're focused for now. But providing top quality fitness instruction and inspiration and clear guidance for a bigger portion of the population that can't afford something like this, or maybe it's not where they are yet in their fitness journey, is really important to us, which is one of the reasons we are publishing and distributing content for free on our website and social channels to make it available to other parts of the population. Now, you could almost call it a freemium type model. It's more that we recognize we're really fortunate to have an amazing piece of hardware and a house to have it in, and had the right experiences in life that allowed us to be excited about fitness and have the time to do it, right? And that isn't the case for everyone. So going back to the motivation question, how do we change motivation? I think that's a really hard problem to solve. I think about it. You take Nike, right? They kind of productized running, and Fitbit has sort of productized walking, and sort of big activities that address large portion of populations. We're trying to productize resistance training or personal fitness in a way, but getting someone to be motivated. We're a little more on the edges of it. It's removing friction, making it easier to fit into your life. It's allowing it to be in the home, right? And there's a lot of talk about gym intimidation and things of that sort. Privacy is a big one, both for trying new activities. Whether it, one of the things we heard a lot in our focus groups was, males who were interested in yoga but felt they weren't quote unquote good at it and didn't want to do it because it was uncomfortable to not be good at something, or the weight room not being the most conducive area for learning, which is totally true. I'm fortunate enough that I grew up playing sports, that I learned how to lift weights, and it's something that's easy and comfortable for me. Not everyone had that opportunity, and so I think by moving into the home and adding guidance that's now at an affordable price point, with no longer personal training price point, to provide encouragement and motivation and measurement, as well as the privacy, you're going to get an uptick in participation from people that may not have participated in these things. And the reality is, weight training is really, really good for people. It's, it's scientifically proven. There's no fad in it, but it's an activity that's always been held away from other people. So regardless of, I think, what population you're talking about, whether it's from a opportunity perspective or a wealth perspective or lifestyle perspective, there's always restrictions and there's always friction and there's always things that keep you from doing things that may or may be interesting to you or good to you. We can address some of those. We can't solve everything, but we do think about that a lot, of how do we help people? What's the problem that they're having, and how do we address that?
Sure, and I think there's a few things in there kind of to unpack. One that comes up across the board is this convenience factor. Is that as people at various stages in their life, they no longer have the time. Maybe they don't have the money. Maybe it's the commute. They have responsibilities at home. So, fitness and health kind of falls off the map. And by having this in the home, it's somehow making that convenience factor easier, and thus they're going to work out more. The second piece being when you have the content, whether it's, someone like a Peloton would probably argue that it's super compelling. There's the community element. There's the leaderboards. It's very sticky. And so folks keep coming back for more classes. I think in your case is also the case with Tonal. There's the element of, we have personalized instruction, so we're teaching you how to strength train, something that does require certain knowledge or expertise, and also feedback. So we can provide that. But if you get to the point where, over time, the hardware piece of it can become kind of commoditized, and the content as a baseline, kind of table stakes for getting into the game, also isn't as differentiated. How does then content, personalization, analytics, really drive the product forward?
So, it's funny that content is commoditized, and there's low barrier to entry to creating digital fitness content, right? And you see that, whether it's looking at the app model or digital content model, and all these things. And yet you would say, well, Peloton's got great content, and so there's this sort of a tension between, well, does it matter or does it not? And one of the things we think about is by making sure the consumer is using your product and you're providing a good product, you a little bit get a flywheel here where you have longer lives on the subscriptions. That generates more revenue, which allows you to invest in better content. And it's the same thing. Netflix, for example, you can say that the negative case on Netflix is their content costs keep going up, and that's a negative thing. And on the other hand, they're the only ones that can afford those content costs, and therefore it becomes a moat. And so there is a little bit of a push pull there, but ultimately it is about the content. And when you talk to talent and experts in what they do, they're interested in having the biggest platform as well. And so it does become somewhat circular, where that person wants to be on the platform that allows them to reach the people in the best possible way. And so for us, you could say the hardware can be commoditized, but when I show, and we do this when we have people come into the studio for auditions, and I show them what they look like on our hardware and what they can do in terms of reaching consumers with the functionality that we have from a digital perspective versus on some of the other products that are out there, it's sort of a night and day thing. And there is a proliferation in hardware, and you can see it, right? There's lots and lots of TVs out there, and there's a kind of an economies of scale, and how do you get to less expensive production? That being said, at the higher end, at the quality level, there really only is kind of one Apple or one Samsung. And I think, our approach to developing the hardware was to make it that quality level, to make it that sort of lustful aspect. And our first piece of press was an architectural digest. It's there's an element of design that fits in the home that you won't see in other products. There's the level of resolution, the computing power, all of the tech stuff that most people don't have as much interest in. They're just kind of more interested in the experience. That's there in a way as it supports that experience and as it supports the content. And so it all kind of goes in one package for the end result of having a great experience for the consumer, which attracts the best talent. And you also will find that production level matters. We're in LA for a reason. This is the number one place in the world for developing content, and it's the number one place in the world for developing fitness, right? Google, Facebook, all the tech people are down here making their content next to Netflix and Disney. The talent pool here is so deep, and they're so good at making content engaging and exciting. It does show differently, right? And you can see it between the proliferation of free Instagram TV fitness content or Zoom fitness content that's happening. It was sort of exciting for the first couple of weeks to have that content at home and in the quarantine space, but at the end of the day, you kind of want to go back and watch the brand name stuff that's good. So I think quality content and talent of artists is something that matters. Another example, just talking about that, is we have licenses with every single music label. It's incredibly important to have brand name music, right? It's expensive, right? And certainly it's going to cost us more to offer that level of quality than some of the other competitors in the space that aren't doing that and that are kind of using more elevator music. But it's fundamental to our belief that experience matters. And if you talk about just in the real world, going to SoulCycle or going to another spin class, they're not that different in price, right? This isn't a category in general that has a huge that is price sensitive, or not price sensitive, that really kind of has different price levels. And so my time is valuable. And if I have a choice between working out with the number one person in the space or an expert, or I have a choice of working out with someone that's not, for me it's pretty clear. And I think we see that a lot. No one wants to work out with the second year yoga teacher. You want to work out with the person that's been been a practitioner for a long time. So there's a lot in there from that, but at the end of the day, it comes down to great content and experience, and that's what the differentiation is. I think more than anything else.
Then part of producing kind of like the great content, the way you're framing it and thinking about the talent pool in terms of, you don't want somebody who's kind of like the entry level instructor, especially if you're paying a premium for both the hardware and the content. How have you approached recruiting talent, maintaining talent? I think one thing that's going to become increasingly interesting in the fitness space is the value proposition starts to migrate from, call it the gym or studio, or in this case, a piece of hardware or an app, to the individual fitness instructor themselves. And they kind of wield this, this influence. How do the different platforms, and maybe how are you thinking about that as, it's kind of a virtuous cycle in that they're building your brand, you're building their brand, you're both providing something to one another. But ultimately, if we're talking about the talent kind of driving the experience, just how do you recruit them? How do you maintain them? What does that relationship look like?
So it is virtuous, and it's definitely a partnership. You're going to see fitness talent in whatever bucket that you can put that in is going to shift closer to more of a star system, right? Or the ones that do well are going to have outsized impact. And if you aren't differentiated from that perspective, you're going to have less of a voice. And so, whether it's any other talent-driven category, sports or music or entertainment, you're going to see those stars show up. And in the same way, Alex Rodriguez wouldn't exist without baseball. The Yankees wouldn't have been as good without him, right? And so it does it is symbiotic. So for us, the recruitment process, luckily we have the deepest talent pool in the world. It's Los Angeles again. That's why we're here. Our main trainer, Harley Pasternak, trains Gwyneth Paltrow, Ariana Grande, a bunch of celebrities. So he's instrumental in helping us recruit. And then we all are out in the space, and what it's like when you see someone or you're in a class with someone where and you can tell they should be on TV effectively, right? You should tell they have talent. And so we bring them into the studio, we audition them. It's been really organic. One of our core beliefs for recruiting, whether it's people on screen or elsewhere in the company, is good people know good people. And when you're really good at your craft, you have a high standard, and you're an expert in seeing what else is of high standard, and the people. So a lot of it's been one trainer saying, I actually have a friend that does this, that'd be great, right? And so we've tried to make it as organic as possible. I think find a list of people with big followings on Instagram and put them together, or put celebrities together in one bucket, looks inauthentic, and it's not cohesive. Very much our trainers are a team, and they work together, and it comes across in how those performances are authentic.
And thus far, when you're talking about the talent, can you give us a sense for like how many instructors that is, or even what it is at this point, and where you anticipate that roster growing to?
So there's kind of more than one classification. There's kind of the core fitness instructors, or there's about 10, and they're sort of what you would see on Peloton, right? They're the people you're going to see on a regular basis. There's all sort of different ages and experiences. Then there are sort of more specialized ones that are in modalities that are less repetitive, or that perhaps are more about experts. And so you have a portfolio of people that cover a lot of different modalities, right? It's not just cycling, or it's not just one thing. So we have a yogi who does Kundalini with house music, and that's a slightly esoteric offering. But he's interesting for the platform, and he's sort of there on a part-time basis. And then you have other people that you'll see day in and day out. So there's a mixture.
Sure. And one thing I think we've touched on a couple elements kind of your product, but of the category in general, being the hardware, the content, the talent. Another thing that comes up a lot, it's central to the fitness experience in general, is this idea of community. Obviously, the boutique fitness experience is based around this kind of tribal element of folks that are sweating together and have this, close-knit relationship with each other and also with the instructor. How are you thinking about community as it relates to FORME?
So this is kind of this from a few different perspectives, and I think any digital product tries to understand how to connect it back to in real life. And so part of it is times when you can meet or participate or have an athletic activity with on-screen talent in your region, right? So, they're visiting markets, they're coming to town. It's sort of like the Peloton pilgrimage to New York, and kind of that one studio, but for us, it's more about our different types of talent being in different regions. We have a lot of connections with actually personal trainers and even that have their own gyms, and for them, working with us is really about extending their own community. And so you may have people that come to your personal training gym and see your personal trainer a few times a week, but they also want to work out at home sometimes, right? And so FORME ends up being an extension of those communities. And while that's not rolled up into kind of us as a corporate organization, it still creates those local communities that are really important. So without a doubt, there are kind of connections to real life that you would get in some of your boutique fitness aspects. And then there's obviously online communities, and whether that's what you see with most brands from a from social networks and leaderboard type activities to try to create that. At the end of the day, they're shared experiences, right? You could watch, well, I guess not now, but you could have watched a baseball game, and so could have I, and we'd both be sitting at home in our own places, and we could talk about it. So we weren't together, but we had a shared experience, and it's something that is relevant to both of us. And so that's a big element of what you're seeing in these digital offerings, is the ability to say, oh, Jonathan said this on screen today, or did you see what he was wearing, or God, that was hard. All of those shared experiences can be replicated into real world communities.
That's one thing I think is interesting that's starting to come up a lot more. Initially it was that connected fitness, on-demand fitness is transforming the landscape, and it's the convenience factor is making it such that, people won't go to the gym. And kind of very quickly it's become, no, they're still going to exercise in real life, just kind of more on their own terms. Maybe they're going to go less often. Maybe it's kind of more for a special class, call it a special occasion even. But now you're starting to see with Equinox, venturing into the at-home and connected space more. And even you mentioned the kind of Peloton pilgrimage, this idea of omnichannel fitness, right? So you're going to have what you go to the boutique for. You're going to have tie-ins at the hotel, whether that's Equinox or Peloton and some of the other devices going into hotels or residential locations, as well as the app you use on the go, the piece of equipment you use at home. Just how do you think about the evolving landscape and this idea of omni-channel fitness?
I believe in it 100%. I don't think it's an either or, it's an and. And Equinox, I think, is one of the leaders. I mean, obviously, one of the leaders in the space, but just at the forefront of thinking about this and really understanding who their consumer is, right? And if you ask them, they will say that they are content owners, and they think about omnichannel distribution. And their research will say that without restrictions, people have the best experience in the gym. But there are other restrictions, the constraints in life of travel or schedule. And so, I've always thought of fitness effectively as a trade-off between convenience and experience. And one of the things that Peloton really did was they took what was a convenient experience, a convenient activity of working out at home, and they made it a better experience, right? The streaming technology, having it be an integrated experience, having good content, made working out on the bike in the basement not so bad. And that's really what they were competing against. It's never going to replace real life activity. And, I see it in my life. I tend to work out at home by myself during the week when I can, like when it fits my schedule. And on the weekends, my fiance and I go to, a boutique fitness class or some of the activity together. And there's kind of different needs. And so I don't think of fitness as one activity in the same way I don't think of as wellness of only as fitness, right? Like it's important to have a lot of different outlets and a lot of different experiences, whether it's meditation to yoga to bar to lifting weights to cardio activities. Having that balance is really important, and that goes to your schedule as well, of having, I need something efficient that fits in, because I don't want to have to choose between the 2-hour activity or the no activity. But at the same time, I enjoy that experience. So I'm a huge believer that this becomes a little bit more of a continuum, or as opposed to it just being black or white.
Absolutely. I see that too. And it's going to be interesting to see how that landscape continues to evolve. One thing, and kind of nearing the end here, so thinking about wrapping up, I know that this is potentially early in the process, given that you're preparing to launch and looking at starting to ship the product this fall. But in your mind, as you mentioned you've been working on this for the last 4 years. Obviously, you have huge ambitions for the company. Just how do you think about what success looks like and what that roadmap looks like in terms of the products out there in the world? You're growing the user base and audience. And then what? Kind of like what does success look like in your mind, and what have you envisioned it looking like?
Uh, it's funny how long these things take. That I think building a sustainable business takes time, and building something of quality takes time. And you look at Peloton in its early days. Its first year it only sold 4,000 units, right? And it just takes a long time to build these things. What's interesting about connected hardware, we're selling atoms, not bits. Like there's a lot of real world limitations in terms of how fast you can grow and whatnot. And so for us, I think it's our first group of customers and members who come back and say, this is amazing, this has changed my life. Like that's kind of our goal. One of the guiding principles we have internally, it's like, if we're asking consumers to bring another screen into their life, like yet another one, it really has to give you life in a way, right? It's a hurdle that we really think about. Everything we do is, how does this fit into life, and how do we not just push more technology on people? And so the goal is that our customers or members come back and say, this fixed this solved things, this improved their life, right? And because we know there's enough customers out there, as long as we're helping people, we'll have a successful business. So for us, it's walking before you run. It's kind of getting these products out there, and after that, I don't think there's a shortage of what can be accomplished with having such a powerful piece of equipment in your house, right? From the technology perspective. Like there's a lot of untapped opportunities after fitness.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and only time will tell. And kind of with that, and wrapping up here, we'll get you out of here on this. Tell folks where they can learn more about Form and kind of what to look forward to in the coming months.
So website is www.formelife.com. It's Form is spelled FORME. And our Instagram handle is This Is Form Life. Those are the two owned channels out there right now that have the most information. And we're starting to accept pre-orders now for delivery in the fall.
Awesome. Well, exciting stuff. We'll be sure to keep everybody in the know as it starts to roll out more. We've kind of covered it a little bit to date, and I'm excited to share this conversation. So thanks for making time, Trent.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's episode. For more from Fit Insider, visit insider.fit.co and subscribe to our weekly newsletter for insights and analysis on the business of fitness and wellness. Then go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. See you next time.